It's a bit like somebody telling you about their dreams. You're either engaged or you're really fucking bored. There's no in between, is there?
Hey, everybody, welcome back to another Friday installment of the Audiophiles. We will be doing a viewer request, as we do here on Fridays, and John will be going off and giving a tune a listen. This one, yep, that's John over there, not to be mistaken with nobody else on this call. John, you're going to be going off and giving a listen to Arab Strap. Now, I know you're familiar with these guys to some degree, right? Because I've seen the banter in the comments field, and you and I have talked about these guys a bit. I know you're familiar with the band, but I think we've come to the realization that you're not familiar with this tune. I don't know anything by these guys until this experience we've had here with this one. So this is sort of my first listen and kind of like self-education, like real quick on these guys. And the tune that we're going to have you go off and listen to was recommended by Mike Summer-Smith, our old friend here at the Audiophiles. And the tune is The First Big Weekend. So, you know a bit about Arab Strap, right? So, but not perhaps, is it this song or just this album in general that this is featured on?
I believe this is from their first album, which bizarrely I don't have, and I haven't heard, which is,
Oh,
I know, odd because it's
yeah,
usually
that's
first album
atypical.
rules, isn't it? But
Yeah,
there's the odd hiccup along the bump, along the way.
yeah.
Sorry. So no, I'm not familiar with this song.
Cool. All right. Well, it's an interesting one to say the least. I can't wait to get your input on it, having listened to it myself. And so we can kind of cut it up and I can get your opinion on it. But yeah, I'll just say interesting and leave it kind of broad
Oh,
and let
it's
you
that
decide
again,
what
is it?
yeah.
Interesting.
Let you decide what you think of it, then come back and let me and Mike and the rest of the gang know your thoughts, man.
Okie dokie, picking a
All
pokey.
right.
So that was the first big weekend of the summer. Starts Thursday as usual with a canteen quiz, and again no one wins a big cash prize. Later I do my sound bloke routine by approaching Gina's new boyfriend to say that he shouldn't feel there's any animosity between us, and then I even go and make peace with her. Shouldn't have bothered.
Okay, it appears we have stumbled into a monologue. I like the acoustic guitar and the fact you can hear his fingers on the strings. That's just a nice sort of close touch to it. Feels quite comfortingly lo-fi. I love his accent. It's that deadpan Scottish. I grew up with a lot of mates whose parents were Scottish, so I wonder how easy Andy would understand this. We'll see, I guess. Something about a canteen quiz that no one wins, and then going up to Gina's boyfriend. Shouldn't have bothered. I love that deadpanness to it, understatement. Great. All right, let's see how it goes.
Then on Friday night we went through the Arches.
I don't.
There was only one car going, so someone had to get the train. We got through quite late and went to a pub to take the gear. There was no problems getting in. We saw others waiting in the front of the queue, so we skipped in. It was a good night. Everyone was nutty and I ended up dancing with some blonde girl. I thought she had been quite pretty until last night when Matthew informed me she had in fact been a pig.
That's really funny. And it's kind of universally true as well. You have your beer goggles, I believe, and certain people can appear one thing, But if your mates tell you otherwise, then that becomes the reality as well, which is nonsense. But that's what happens.
When the club finished, we wandered the streets for a while until we got this 24-hour cafe. I didn't like look at it, so we left and got a taxi back to Morag's flat. I couldn't sleep, so I sat about drinking someone else's strawberry tonic wine and trying to keep everyone else up. Then at 10 o'clock in the morning we went downstairs to buy some drink. We had intended to watch a football in the afternoon, but we passed it by then, slept right through it. I winked to find the English had won 2-0. Then went to get the train home, had a few in the station bar.
England won 2-0. I think that's Euro 96.
Had some stuff left for the previous night's supply, so we got home, we decided to go down to John's Indie Disco. Same story as Friday, lots of hugging, lots of dancing, etc, etc. We couldn't sleep again, so we went to the park to look at the town, taking a detour through the play park. To get in, we had to climb over a 10-foot steel fence, which resulted in severe bruising with our hands, legs and groins. But we had a good laugh on the stuff, especially the tube slide, which probably doubles up as a urinal for drunk teens. Then we walked through the woods to look at the tomb. It was a big disappointment, but the mist on the lake was cool. Sunday afternoon we got up to John's with a lot of beer and time to watch The Simpsons. It was a really good episode about love always ended in tragedy, except of course for Marge and Homer. I was quite moved at the end, and to tell you the truth, my eyes were a bit damp. Then we watched these young girls in swimsuits have a water fight in the street. We went up the pub about 10.
I like the bit when he goes, oh, it's Sunday, and the music sort of breaks down a little bit, like, you know, you take it easy on a Sunday. But then it starts coming in again, and it's slightly off-key and a bit off-kilter, which can be the way when you're boozing on a Sunday. It feels not quite right in a way. But I've had some big nights on Sunday, so yeah, I know what I mean.
I was busy for a Sunday night. Lots of people I know, including my first ever girlfriend, who I still find very attractive, quite frankly, but I didn't really speak to her. She's probably still a bitch anyway. My friend Gillian was there. I had a chat with her, she was still quite pleasant. At the same time I watched Malcolm make some terrible attempt to try and chat up a girl we know called Joe. He made some remark about a skirt that was barely there the previous night or something. I couldn't sleep again that night, thanks to some seriously disturbing nightmares. Matthew said I should cut down on the cheese.
Waiting for the weekend, it lasted forever. But hi with my friends, it's officially summer. Waiting for the weekend, it lasted forever. But hi with my friends, it's officially summer.
Waiting for the weekend, it lasted forever. Hi with our friends, it's officially summer.
Waiting for the weekend, it lasted forever. But hi with our friends, it's officially summer.
I got some sleep eventually on Monday afternoon. It was a beautiful day. And later that evening, Malcolm introduced me to a further Merry now. 179 a litre, 8.2%.
It's harder to distinguish now, but I think he said Mary Down, which is cider, and then he went on about how much it was a litre and the percentage. So we used to do this thing years ago called beer maths. So you work out the size of whatever drink you're buying, bottle or pack, times it by the alcohol, and then divide by the price, and you get a sort of cost per booze unit. I think we worked out this horrible 3-litre bottle of Hock from Tesco's around the corner. It was some stupid, like 18 or 20%. It was horrible stuff, but it was like about £1.80. It got you so pissed. There you go.
Judith and Lauren came right later, and we sat in my back garden and drank. Then Matthew came round and we went out of town.
Waiting for the weekend, it lasted forever. But hi with our friends, yeah.
It's officially
Waiting for
summer.
the weekend, it lasted forever. But hi with our friends, it's officially especially summer.
I enjoyed that because I was getting like flashbacks and stuff. It's really sort of a nice little storytelling, deadpan. There's a bit of mundane quality to it as well, but some universality as well. Yeah, that was fun. I mean, musically, it wasn't fantastic, but as a narrative, that was really cool. Right, let's see what Andy makes of this. Let's go back and have a chat.
All right, welcome back. So, how was your first big weekend?
I have arisen. Yeah, this is interesting. So I'll, I'll tell you a bit about sort of my knowledge of Arab Strap. So I know that they were mates, knocked around with Bella Sebastian, and Stuart Murdoch's done some stuff for them, hence their song Boy with the Arab Strap as well, which is a banger. So I got a couple of their albums. I've got Elephant Shoe, which is the least one I'm familiar with. I've listened to it a few times. Monday at the Hug and Pint, which is a great album. It's almost like a concept album about pub and characters in the pub. And there's a really, my favorite tune is called Fucking Little Bastards, which you can imagine in a pub. Fucking
Yeah.
little bastards. And then The Last Romance, which is a really good album. And my favorite of that, Don't Ask Me to Dance. I think that's a really good tune. I know they started off sort of folky and they developed their sound, and that's all they've done a lot, and that's the only slice of their stuff I'm familiar with, and it's really off the back of Bell and Sebastian. So don't really know much about them. I know it's two geezers and that's it. So this song came as a bit of a surprise to me. I didn't know what to expect. I thought maybe it's not that similar to the later stuff, really. So it starts with this really nice acoustic guitar. And I like the lo-fi sort of touch where you can feel his fingers moving around on the strings. That sort of thing makes it feel intimate straight away. And you're in his bedroom, aren't you? And he's and then we sort of enter this monologue, cataloguing events of a long weekend. I mean, it's not quite James Joyce's Ulysses, but you know, this may be the Scottish version of it for the, I'm guessing, late 90s. It's a bit like somebody telling you about their dreams. You know, you're either engaged or you're really fucking bored. There's no in between, is there? And luckily for me, there's a lot of this I found quite universal and engaging, and I could connect with. Musically, it's really very simple, but it does build throughout the song. And it's all about these mundane yet magical moments, and many of which I did identify with. So I tried to get down as much content as I could. I probably missed huge chunks, but you know, I was scribbling away like crazy. So the protagonist begins in that deadpan Scottish accent, describing the events, and they're sort of cut like from Thursday through to Monday. And I did wonder how you do deciphering the accent. I think I said the reaction. I grew up, a lot of my friends, their parents were Scottish for some bizarre reason. So I had all the sort of difference, the Edinburgh and the Glaswegian accent around me from a young age. So I have no problem deciphering that sort of thing. So I can imagine for some it'll be more difficult, especially if you're not from these isles.
Yes.
But yeah, so he starts off with a thing called canteen quiz. I don't know why it's called that. I mean, the only two things I can think of is that either the questions are pulled out of a canteen, which is like an army drink thing, which I can't think it's that, or it's set in a canteen, which makes me think it's like a work environment thing, which maybe they have at the end of on a Thursday. I don't know. Weird. But no one wins the cash prize, which is the main point.
Yeah.
He mentioned Gina's new boyfriend, and I think from that, perhaps Gina is an ex. and he's trying to approach them to show no animosity, and then he says, "Shouldn't have bothered," and he kind of sighs that out. It's like a deflation. It's really nice. And then so there's not much really happening on Thursday in terms of a big weekend, but Friday night he announces the Arches, which I believe is a club. That's when the drum machine kicks in. And it kind of references that club atmosphere. So they go off to a pub, take some gear, they skip the queue, and they're in. And he's messing around, and he ends up dancing with this blonde girl that he thinks is quite pretty, until Matthew tells him that she was, in fact, a pig. Um, Again, I stopped it here because the beer goggles thing is very accurate, and we've all been there. But what made it even funnier was that reality shift. Just because you're told by a friend, no, actually, she isn't, you accept that straight away. And especially at that young age, like, I don't know, it's late teens, early 20s. Yeah, fine. Okay, she is a pig. It's so easily swayed, you know. Which again, I identify with, found it really funny. The hi-hat action, whatever you want to call it, kicks in. And they wander around. There's something about a 24-hour cafe, and then they end up back at Morag's flat. I used to have a next door neighbor called Morag, actually. It's a pretty rare name, but there you go. He has insomnia, which leads to the narrator drinking somebody's strawberry wine tonic, which sounds absolutely fucking revolting. And again, it's totally identifiable, and they're sort of it's what I call the desperate hours.
Right, yeah.
And I think he says something about trying to keep everybody awake, which is, oh, that annoying fucker that just won't let up. And then if you're any doubt that it is indeed a drum machine, there's this really naff fill around the 140 mark just to confirm it. Into Saturday, they sleep through the football, and he references a 2-0 win to England. Now, it must be talking about Scotland, because they, believe me, no Scottish person would stay up to watch England play. So if it's 2-0 Scotland versus England, it's got to be Euro 96. So that's Shearer, missed McAllister penalty, and then Gaza with that wonderful goal. So that's put in mind exactly when this was. This will be June 96. Then they go off to John's indie disco, which again, I picture it straight away in my head. So he says something about lots of hugging, lots of dancing. And afterwards, and this is something we used to do as well, he breaks into a play park over a 10-foot fence. And he mentions like messing around, it was fun. And the slide, which he thinks is probably used by tramps as a urinal. Again, we did that. I remember one time with two friends breaking into this park, and they had this giant sort of metal springs, like coils. They're like industrial. They're about I mean, the size of them are over a foot wide, and the actual spring itself is a good sort of 1.5 inches thick. And on top of these springs, they're about 1.5 foot, 2 foot tall. There was these little plastic horses, and it's clearly designed for 5-year-olds. So the three of us would grab one each and squeeze ourselves onto these horse things, and immediately all it does is go doing, down and then boing, back up, and you're swaying, and your piss is a fart anyway, so you're swaying with even when you're still. And so we're on these things for at least half an hour, probably more, just constantly laughing, thinking it was the greatest ride in the world. So all that sort of, I connected with that straight away. I didn't catch the next few bits. It was a bit sort of murbled, but he said something about a lake with mist. And then there was another crappy sort of mechanical drum fill. And then it's on to Sunday. Now, interesting here, the music changes slightly to give that Sunday. Sunday's an off day. It really is, you know, because it's a day of rest. And it used to be in this country, everything was fucking shut on Sundays. They're open now, but only for short periods. And so Sunday's a really odd day, and especially it's an odd day to go. If you go out on the piss or go out drinking, it always feels a bit weird. And the guitar in this is a bit ponderous and a bit off key as well, which is exactly what drinking on Sunday is like. And I used to have a work where I didn't start work. I finished work on Saturday morning. I did night shift and started again Monday night. So Sunday was a big night. But you only got a very thin crowd because people were worried about turning up pissed for work Monday morning. So you had this weird dynamic on a Sunday night that there's only like a few of us who really going for it. And it always felt a bit strange. So they're at John's flat watching The Simpsons, and apparently it's a really good episode that made his eyes damp. And then they're off to the pub where he sees his first ever girlfriend, and he still fancies her, but he consoles himself for the fact that she's probably still a bitch anyway. Which made me laugh. And then there's some more girls, Gillian and this girl Jo, and Malcolm's failed chat up line, something about skirt nearly there. And then there's more insomnia. And he says about nightmares, and Matthew says cut down on the cheese. And then we have some singing. Went out for the weekend, it lasted forever, got high with our friends, it's officially summer. And that goes on for a bit. And that's like, their anthem. And then Monday afternoon, he finally gets some sleep, bless him. It's a little bit unclear here because the refrain continues, but I think Malcolm introduces him to some Merry Down cider, and he mentions the price and the alcohol percentage, which reminds me of this thing we used to do called beer maths, where you take said quantity, volume, alcohol content, divide by price, and bingo, you get your booze unit
Hang for your buck.
costing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I think I said on the reaction, there's 3 litre bottle of Hock from Tesco's for about £1.80, but it was like 18%. Absolutely ridiculous. Tasted like paint stripper, but it got you pissed really quickly.
Yeah.
I think we looked at there was another brand called Hunter's Sherry, and that was lethal as well, and that was dirt cheap. But it's not great. But you preload when you're young, and then off you go to make bad decisions all night. Great stuff.
Yeah.
So then friends come round, there's some more drinking in the garden, and then it's back into town, and it ends with it's officially summer. And again, I could see that setting, and that's what we used to do. We had a small patio garden in my bachelor pad, and then we were off into town, and it was great. And I love those evenings, particularly in your 20s, fantastic. So musically, it wasn't anything special. But the mundane narrative made it a fairly sort of universal tale that connected with me several times. And so I really engaged with this and just enjoyed the story and identified with it in parts as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a good shout.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned like how I would receive it, mostly because of like the thick Scottish accent and like how I would interpret it with my Yank ears. And God, you're right. Thank God I'm on this side of the reaction dynamic, so I could pull up the lyrics as I was listening to this and do all the homework. But as I was listening to it, like I was smiling, not because it's nostalgic to me, but because I know that this is like nostalgic. This is like quintessentially British to me. This whole weekend that's portrayed here. And I've thrown songs at you that are so many of the songs I gave you kind of came flooding back to me, but from the other side, right? Like I think like It Never Stops by Bad Books is about this weekend sort of that runs a couple days over and what happens during that period. And that song kind of came to me, but then also less about the idea of encapsulating a weekend or, like this debaucherous period, but more so the quintessential sort of like how the song Notes to the Grindstone by Tyler Childers is so quintessentially Appalachian Americana in what it's depicting and the scenarios therein. And while it is very much Americana, this is in a way does the same thing, but from y'all's vantage point, where it's tapping into something that you have to be British to truly understand, or at least know a bit about British culture to know that this is like some rootsy, everybody goes through this youthful kind of, experience. So it was really interesting to me to listen to the song and to read the lyrics and kind of understand, even though I'm not of that there's so many people from over there that probably listen to this and go, God damn, I couldn't even count on both hands the weekends I had that were like this, or the experiences I've had with friends or exes or, whatever, all these different stanzas where he talks about these different scenarios where y'all can connect to that so easily. So it was kind of, it made me smile a bit too, even though I'm not of this, because I know that like there's so many people that are. I know enough about British, football culture and pub culture and all that stuff, to know that this, oh my God, this has to ring true to so many folks that are listening to this channel, and even more who've just lived that life over there. So it was a fun experience for me. It's funny that you also mentioned Ulysses, because there is sort of the stream of consciousness that's going on here, albeit easier to compute. Well, perhaps if you if you understand the Scottish accent and don't have the lyrics, but there is this like stream of consciousness that's going on to it. So to me, and also the breadth of the lyrics is kind of like novella like set to music, which also gives it this art house kind of like, it's more of like its own standing piece of art than it is just another song that you might stumble across too, because of like its packaging and its delivery, which is kind of interesting and not something you always run into or cliched in music, right? This is a little different and outside the box. I enjoyed that aspect of it. Like this, to me, I couldn't listen to this every single day. And I can't connect with it as viscerally as you guys can, because this isn't like something that's like in me, but I recognize that it isn't so many, and that this has to really like pull at people's heartstrings or their memories, or their nostalgic bone. And I thought it was really, really fun and an interesting listen, almost like an educational piece for me. Even though like I already knew this, but it's fun to like just hear it play out and to see it all with such detail too. It's really cool and a lot of fun. It was like reading a script to something, which was also a really fun experience.
Yeah, it's like it's an experience, isn't it? Rather than a sing-along song.
Yes,
you get this slice of life, as it were. And each one's going to be slightly different. Different places have different rituals. There's certain things people all do in one town which they'll do differently in another town. But you still get that same feeling. I don't know if this is set in Scotland, obviously, but I don't know if it's Glasgow or somewhere else, or Falkirk or something like that. But you almost get this feeling that it's still a small town feel, like, everyone knows everybody. And that's why he keeps banging into his exes, because it's within that circle. Whereas, you're going out with someone in London, you might not ever see them ever again,
Right.
Exactly. So, within that we had that growing up around here, that on one hand it's comforting, on the other hand it's frustrating, because you have that circle around you which is comforting, but you never break out of that circle, or you seem not to at the time. And again, you feel bound by it, but also supported by it. So it's that duality.
Yeah, and that is actually something that I can connect with. Like that aspect of it, I can really connect with, because like Baltimore's not one of the big major cities in America. In fact, we jokingly, if you're from here, we call it Smalltimore, because like you're bound to run into people that you've encountered throughout your time here on a daily or weekly basis. This isn't LA, San Francisco, Chicago, Houston, New York. You know what I mean? This is a smaller knit. So there is that God, I want to get the fuck out of here because I want to avoid all these people. But there is also this, like you said, like a comfort level to it. Like it. It's the devil you know versus the devil you don't, or whatever. So yeah, that's interesting point. Let me jump into the band a little bit. So Arab Strap are a Scottish indie rock band whose core members are Aidan Moffat and Malcolm Middleton. The band was signed to independent record label Chemical, though it's spelled differently than the actual word chemical. Chemical Underground. They split in 2006 and reformed 10 years later in 2016. The vocalist and drummer Aidan Moffat and multi-instrumentalist Malcolm Middleton grew up in Falkirk, Scotland, as you mentioned, and bonded over a mutual love for drag city recording artists such as Will Oldham, who at the time recorded under the name Palace Brothers, and the band Smog. They began collaborating in 1995, and their debut album, The Week Never Starts Round Here, which is the album this song is featured on, was released the following year. And The First Big Weekend is the 8th track on that album. This album was reissued in 2010 with a bonus CD, which includes the band's first session for John Peel. That was from March of 1997, with guest appearances from Bell and Sebastian's Stuart Murdoch and Chris, and how do you say his last name? Chris Geds? Are you familiar? Okay, yeah, we'll go with all of those, all or any of them. And their first ever live gig at the King Tut's in Glasgow in October 1996, as recorded live for the Peel show. And the first big weekend received a large amount of airplay on BBC Radio 1's evening session show. The show's host, DJ Steve Lamacq, described the sound as what is it?
Lamacq.
Thank you. I put the wrong emphasis on the wrong syllable.
Yes.
Described the song as the best of the decade and the most perfect pop song ever. The song was placed at number 187. Yeah, I know. I was like, pop song. Was placed at number 187 on Pitchfork's top 200 tracks of the 1990s list in 2010. So let me jump into this, into these lyrics.
Wait a sec. Before you do, Andy. I mean, I can see it being really loved by a lot of people, but to me, it's no weekender. That's like, it's got all of that to it, that attitude as well. So I can see it, but I think he's got a bit overboard on the praise of it. It's really decent. I'd genuinely love it. And probably if I listen to it more, I'd love it even more. I mean, almost immediately I'll, take into it. But I think it's, like you said, it's that slice. And you wouldn't listen to this every day or even every week, I think.
Yeah.
So, it's great, but it's not, come on, let's not get carried away.
Let's look at it. Like, to throw the word pop out there, it's like pop usually means accessible and accessible to the masses. This is as awesome as it is not that. At least I would think anyway. So yeah, let me jump into this two chapter lyric session here. So that was the first big weekend of the summer. Starts Thursday as usual with a canteen quiz, and again, no one wins the big cash prize. Later, I do my sound bloke routine by approaching Gina's new boyfriend to say that he shouldn't feel that there's any animosity between us, and then I even go and make peace with her. Shouldn't have bothered. Then on Friday night, we went through the arches. There was only one car going, so some of us had to get the train. We got through quite late. Then we went to a pub to take the gear. There was no problems getting in. We saw some others waiting down the front of the queue, so we skipped in. It was a good night. Everyone was nutted, and I ended up dancing with some blonde girl. I thought she had been quite pretty until last night when Matthew informed me that she had, in fact, been a pig. When the club finished, we wandered the streets for a while until we got to the 24-hour cafe. I didn't like the look of it, so we left and got a taxi back to Morag's flat. I couldn't sleep, so I sat about drinking someone else's strawberry tonic wine and tried to keep everyone else up. Then at 10 o'clock in the morning, we went downstairs to buy some drink. We had intended to watch football in the afternoon, but we had passed out by then and slept right through it, awaking to find that England had won 2-0. Then we went to get the train home and had a few in the station bar. We had some stuff left from the previous night's supplies, so we got home. We decided to go down to John's Indie Disco. Same story as Friday. Lots of hugging, lots of dancing, etc., etc. I couldn't sleep again, so went to the park to look at the tune, taking a detour through the play park. To get in, we had to climb over a 10-foot steel fence, which resulted in severe bruising on our hands, legs, and groins. But we had a good laugh on the stuff, especially the tube slide, which probably doubles as a urinal for drunk teens. Then we walked through the woods to have a look at the tomb. Big disappointment, but the mist on the lake was cool. Sunday afternoon, we got up to John's with a lot of beer in time to watch The Simpsons. It was a really good episode about love always ending in tragedy, except of course for Marge and Homer. It was quite moving, and at the end, and to tell you the truth, my eyes were a bit damp. Then we watched these young girls in swimsuits have a water fight in the street. You taping this, eh? We went up to the pub about 10. It was busy for a Sunday, lots of people we know, including my first ever girlfriend, who I still find very attractive, quite frankly, but I didn't really speak to her. She's probably still a bitch anyway. Her friend Gillian was there. I had a chat with her. She was still quite pleasant. At the same time, I watched Malcolm make some terrible attempt to try and chat up a girl we know called Jo. He had some remark about her skirt that was barely there the previous night or something. I couldn't sleep again that night, thanks to some seriously disturbing nightmares. Matthew says I should cut down on the cheese. Went out for the weekend. It lasted forever. High with our friends. It's officially summer. And that repeats itself over and over again. And then it goes, I got some sleep eventually on Monday afternoon. It was a beautiful day. And later that evening, Malcolm introduced me to the power of Mary Down. 179 a liter, 8.2%. Judith and Laura came around later, and we sat in the back of the garden and drank. Then Matthew came around, and we went up to the town. Went out for the weekend. It lasted forever. High with our friends. It's officially summer. It's officially summer. Went out for the weekend. It lasted forever. High with our friends. It's officially summer. So the first big weekend is, for the most part, a monologue spoken by Aidan Moffat while bandmate Malcolm Middleton plays guitar and a drum machine, as you pointed out, accompanies. The lyrics revolve around the events of a weekend in Glasgow and Falkirk, including going out to the clubs and bars, watching international football and The Simpsons, and trying to pick up girls. Towards the end of the song, Middleton sings the line, we went out for the weekend, it lasted forever, got high with our friends, it's officially summer. These are the only sung words in the song. Fans have worked out that the titular weekend must have started on Thursday, June 13th, 1996, and the game where England had won 2-0 refers to the England versus Scotland match at the Euro in 1996. So you had very deftly identified the timeline of this wild, raucous weekend.
Funny enough, sorry, just quickly, I remember watching that football match because I went round to my mate Rob's in Leicester, and his dad was there as well, and his dad comes from Grangemouth in Scotland. So Rob was 50-50 on the fence, depending which, and I was England, and Rob's dad was Scottish, and it went well for me.
And you were firmly kicked out after that, huh? That's great. That's great. Well, this was really an interesting song. So much like richness in the lyrics, if you will. And it just paints several very interesting pictures. And for me, as you know, the token American on the show, it was actually, some of it actually is relatable. Like if you take out the international football thing and you replace it for some big baseball or American football game, and you know, you add in the sort of pub life with American bar and club life, there's not that much difference when you're, especially when you're that age, you're chasing girls and listening to music and, you know, dogging each other. And you know, it is actually quite relatable. It's just the setting is a little different, but I mean, behind it, we're all humans, and we've all been around this age and gone through these times in our lives, and it's so it can still, I think, translate and be nostalgic for us over here. And I found it to be, actually, even though it was very much quintessentially British in its packaging. But yeah, man, I'm glad you enjoyed it. I'm sure Mike is too. Mike, thank you for offering up this Arab Strap song.
Thanks, Mike.
It was a lot of fun. Yeah. All right. Well, guys out there in the listening audience, let us know what you thought of Mike's recommendation down in the comments field below, what you think of Arab Strap, maybe some other songs by them that we should be checking out. Also, while I have your attention, if you're even still here, feel free to like, share, and subscribe. We're trying to grow the channel, and we can't do that without you guys. We really, really do appreciate that. And until next time, John and I hope to see all y'all and maybe some more on the next installment of the Audiophiles. Have a good weekend, guys.